Hey, good Saturday, everybody. Hopefully, we're having a wonderful weekend out there. Got a big update here for you on what's ongoing in the tropics as well as the lower 48. And really, it's quite active in both areas with the potential of a tropical storm, maybe even a hurricane forming into the Caribbean and likely moving generally towards the United States. Being one concern. Another concern is a severe weather outbreak, really ongoing starting now through the weekend and even into early next week as a big time storm system crosses the lower 48. Now, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Gerald. I'm a meteorology major at the University of North Carolina, Charlotte. Here about halfway through my junior year, so starting to get hopefully kind of close to the end of the whole educational journey before kind of getting to the fun stuff. But if you haven't already subscribed, please do so and go ahead and hit that bell for the latest notifications. That's going to be very important for keeping you up to date with this impactful weather on the horizon, especially as we go through the wintertime and things really pick up as these air masses continue to clash. Now, also go ahead and like the video if you enjoy it and comment down below. Let me know where you're watching from and let me know if you have any fun weekend plans. Personally, I'm going to a football game tonight, so that's always fun. Other than that, that's kind of the big plan for me this weekend on top of a lot of studying for a lot of exams coming on down the road. Alrighty, folks, with that said, let's go ahead and jump on into things and start talking about what we have to kind of dive into here. Now, we'll start with satellite imagery for both the lower 48 and the Caribbean, then we'll dive into the tropics, and then we'll dive into the severe weather threat after that. But currently, down in the tropics, we do have kind of two areas that we're watching with thunderstorm activity. And I think what's really going to happen here is these are almost going to kind of work in tandem to form a one storm, likely somewhere into the western Caribbean here over the next couple of days, as you're going to kind of get some vorticity down here and some vorticity north of Puerto Rico that again kind of combine in this region to create one storm of sorts. Now, we'll talk about that more in depth in a second, but looking at the lower 48, I mean, we've got quite the thunderstorm complex, don't we, here over the Texas Panhandle, and this will continue this afternoon, even seeing those thunderstorms up through Oklahoma and Kansas. All hazards on the table today, so strong straight line winds and hail, I think, will be the main threats, but a couple tornadoes cannot be ruled out. And then that will continue through tomorrow and even into Monday and potentially Tuesday as well. So quite the stretch here of severe weather on the horizon. Now, with that said, let's go ahead and dive on into the tropics and give you the latest look there. We now officially have Tropical Storm Patty that is formed. This is a 50-mile-an-hour tropical storm out near the Azores, so this is actually not in the Caribbean. This one kind of snuck up on some of us, I think, a little bit. But the good news is no impacts expected to North America, just really some squally weather through the Azores over the next couple of days. But again, nothing the islands there can't handle. Although, if you just happen to be watching from the Azores, definitely let me know. That would be cool to hear. But Patty, not a United States problem or Canada problem for that matter, or really anybody on this hemisphere. Now, what could be a problem for us on this side of the world is what's happening down into the Caribbean and Southwest Atlantic. Again, you'll notice two areas being monitored by the National Hurricane Center, but really it's kind of one area. It's just kind of separated a bit right now. But again, I'm expecting these to kind of come together. And currently, the National Hurricane Center running an 80% chance of development over the next 7 days and a 60% chance by the time the weekend is up and into early next week. Again, down here towards Jamaica, and that other area only at a 10% chance. But again, really, I would include it with the red area. So chances have increased for tropical development. We've been talking about this for what sounds and feels like forever. Trust me, I know. But I do think we are finally getting towards that development time frame here as we move on down the horizon just a little bit. All right, let's talk about the ingredients for development, and one of them is very warm ocean temperatures still left over into the Caribbean. I mean, we've got temperatures still up in the upper 80s for Fahrenheit, in and around 30 degrees Celsius, which is more than conducive enough for tropical development. What I want you to notice, though, is along the Gulf Coast as well. Notice how these temperatures drop off pretty significantly. Anything that is smaller on your y-axis or your key here from the color yellow, so those greens and blues, those are not favorable for tropical development or to sustain tropical activity. So why is that important? Well, again, we could get something to develop in the Caribbean, and it could maintain strength into the Gulf of Mexico. But likely once it hits these cooler shelf waters, it should begin to weaken. So I'm not expecting any sort of rapid intensification right up to landfall with this potential system. With that said, though, we could still see impacts. So let's go ahead and dive into those ingredients a little bit more for you, starting with wind shear. So let me back this up just a little bit. This is this afternoon. Again, looking at the Caribbean, red is unfavorable conditions, blue is more favorable. A good amount of wind shear in this region currently, but we are expecting over the next couple of days, this is into Monday and Tuesday, notice how that wind shear relaxes significantly and conditions become much more favorable to maintain a tropical system. And I do think that is exactly what will happen, is we'll get that development probably sometime tomorrow, Monday, or Tuesday. And I know that's kind of a big time frame, but I think right into there is when we'll get something to form into the Western Caribbean as this wind shear relaxes, and it stays calm for a while. Again, as this moves into the Gulf of Mexico, a lot of blue through next week into the Gulf of Mexico. I mean, wind shear stays calm out here for a while into the near run. So does that mean that this maybe isn't the last tropical system of the year? We'll see. I would hope that this would be the last one. Again, we're getting pretty late into the season here, but we will have to watch the rest of November. You cannot rule it out, but I do think United States impacts at a serious level. The chances of that would drop off pretty significantly after this storm system. All right, another ingredient and kind of the final ingredient we will talk about is moisture content. Again, if you're a hurricane, there's a lot of rain involved, so you need a lot of moisture in the atmosphere for that latent heat release process to kind of continue to strengthen these storms. And this will be something I think that is a bit of a limiting factor. This is the latest GFS, and the GFS getting the storm going by Monday here. And you'll notice in a pocket of pretty moist air, but there is dry air through the Gulf of Mexico, and the storm system is likely going to run into that dry air eventually. So this will be one limiting factor that I think could help limit the chances of development. And you'll even notice behind here, here's another storm in the long run. We'll save that for another time. But again, I think dry air is going to be the biggest limiting factor with this storm system. This is this coming Wednesday into Thursday. You'll notice we do have a tropical storm in the Gulf and a lot of moisture getting pulled out of the Caribbean. So that could definitely bring a surge of moisture into the southeast. We'll need to watch it. But around the storm, overall, the environment has plenty of dry air to kind of mess with that circulation. And you would expect that this time of year. So we'll definitely hope for that outcome to be true. Now, what about the track? Well, latest GFS, again, kind of runs pretty well with what I just showed you. A tropical storm forming deep into the Caribbean sometime this weekend or Monday, getting pulled northward and could become a hurricane in this window. I think between Jamaica and Cuba is when we're going to have the highest likelihood for this to become a hurricane. And if it does, it would likely make landfall, at least off the GFS, somewhere into the southern coast of western Cuba as potentially, again, a Category 1, cannot even rule out a Category 2 hurricane. And then eventually on the GFS would get pulled into the Gulf of Mexico during the middle of this coming week. And then that's when the forecasted track becomes a little bit more haywire. Some pull it towards Texas, some pull it straight up into Florida. And, more steering current problems to kind of iron out there. But again, strong confidence, a tropical system will form, potentially becoming a hurricane, impacting Cuba, and then eventually getting into the Gulf of Mexico with the GFS and its ensemble members. The European, a little bit different here. Again, still developing this, most of these ensemble members into the Gulf of Mexico, getting it up near Jamaica, but a little bit further west here. So a lot of these members, unlike the GFS, which kind of gets it into the Gulf and then some pull it towards Texas, the European, really all of them get close to Cuba, many of them making landfall, but then hooking a hard left turn here westward towards the Bay of Campeche, where then eventually, near 10 days out, the models kind of slowly curve this north towards Texas or the southeastern or the southwestern Gulf Coast. So still a lot to iron out in the track department, I think, but we are a lot more confident we are going to get a storm, which would be Rafael, over the next 48 to 72 hours, with potential, if not likely, impacts to land. In fact, I would say likely impacts to land, potential impacts directly to the United States. All right, let's dive into some models here and start talking about what some of these look like. Now, I already kind of showed you the GFS, but we'll run through it again. Again, tropical storm developing. This is Monday afternoon, moving through the island of Jamaica. It's a pretty small storm here, actually. Again, in and around tropical storm strength, but a pretty feisty one, around 990 millibars. That would bring probably winds of 60, maybe even 70 miles an hour, and a lot of flooding rain to the island. Again, this would be Monday into Tuesday. Then moves up towards Cuba, becomes a hurricane. Again, Category 1, Category 2 strength here. Makes landfall on the southwestern coast of Cuba. Wednesday morning, basically exactly what its ensemble member showed, so good agreement between the two. And then gets this into the Gulf, weakens it back into a tropical storm, slowly moves towards Texas, weakens significantly, and then gets picked up by a front and would bring some very beneficial rainfall to the southeast about a week or so from now. So that's the GFS model. The European, different for sure. Develops the storm, though, the same into the Caribbean, a little bit weaker through Jamaica, but same time frame, Monday evening, Monday afternoon into Tuesday is a weak storm. Then up and around Cuba's southwest coastline by overnight Wednesday into Thursday, then gets it into the Gulf by later next week, not till Friday, so a little bit slower than the GFS, and then moves it towards Texas and the Yucatan, strengthens it in the Yucatan, and then kind of stalls out a little bit, getting near tropical or higher end tropical storm strength there near 10 days from now. So two pretty different outcomes between the two. I'll show you one more model. This is the Icon model, the German model. We'll just quickly move this ahead. Again, form's the same, time frame is the same. This is actually a little bit earlier. So this would be Tuesday morning, so actually I guess a little later, through Jamaica. And then into, again, southwest Cuba, like the other models, overnight Tuesday into Wednesday, into the Gulf of Mexico. And we actually get a tropical storm landfall into the Florida Panhandle this coming Thursday. So the long range timeline is a bit different between the models, and we'll really just need time to iron it out. But definitely looking a lot more likely something to form in the Caribbean. Strength-wise, also kind of up in the air, but I do think at least a tropical storm, maybe a category 1 or 2 for a brief period of time before some environmental conditions become a little less favorable for it to get any stronger than that. All right, let's talk about the current surface pattern over the United States, and then we'll talk about what's to come on down the road here. Right now, the big theme is high pressure over the east. This is brought or is currently bringing a little bit of a backdoor cold front through the mid-Atlantic. Other than that, a big-time trough dipping down out west. This is bringing a whole ton of moisture into the Rockies, bringing that lift due to orographic lift as it kind of hits the Rocky Mountains. And then we're getting difluence over the plains. We're getting low pressure to form out here, and a big-time thunderstorm complex currently that is going to continue to mature and into low pressure over the next couple of days and bring that severe weather threat with it. Now, current watches, warnings, advisories, radar, we'll start in the east, all quiet east of the Mississippi in terms of watches and warnings. We've got a couple of special weather statements up into Massachusetts, Connecticut. This continues to be for fire danger, and we even have frost advisories for portions of Long Island, so keep that in mind. But other than that, we've got a couple showers through the northeast, just a couple of showers in the southeast as this backdoor cold front moves through. Also going to probably see a couple of showers in and around coastal regions of South Carolina and southeastern North Carolina. A bit of a baroclinic zone setting up as this cold air damming moves in. Same thing we saw last week where a couple showers got even as far inland as Columbia. Probably unlikely to get that far inland this weekend, but watch out for that. And then some showers along the coast of Florida. Now, the really active weather, though, is out here into the southern plains. A whole lot of rain is falling here, a lot of lightning, as we saw with satellite imagery earlier. Flooded watches up for Oklahoma, back down into New Mexico. And again, this is an area that is in drought, but we're getting so much rain in such a short period of time that it's a little bit overwhelming for the soils here. So need to continue to watch that for the potential of some flooding out this way. And then out west, the story is mountain snow with winter weather advisories up for much of the Rockies. So that's kind of what we're seeing out there right now. What's to come through the next couple of days? Well, it's really all going to be from what happens in the jet stream. A big-time trough. This is today, this afternoon. You'll notice a bit of some troughing, and wow, my pen size keeps changing, but you'll notice some troughing showing up here out into the west through the Rockies. And that only amplifies even more through the next couple of days. This is by the time we get into Sunday afternoon. Check this out. A massive trough. I mean, this is digging all the way down into Mexico, while the negative vorticity side here is all the way up into Canada. So again, a big time amplitude in this trough. And this is going to create a ton of difluence aloft and a lot of rising motion over the plains, which is going to lead to a lot of rainfall, cyclogenesis, severe weather, kind of all the good stuff there as we get this positive vorticity advection into this difluent zone of the trough. So again, severe weather going to be a problem, flooding rain's going to be a problem, a lot of lightning with some of this, and that will continue through the coming days and continuing to amplify as it works on through. Now, severe weather today, a slight risk up from Oklahoma City all the way back down into Big Springs and Midland, Texas, even into extreme southeastern New Mexico under the threat for severe weather today. But that continues tomorrow and expands a little bit as well. Much of Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, at least the northern half of the state, under that severe weather threat tomorrow for our Sunday. And guess what? We're going to do it all again on Monday as well, with an even bigger severe weather threat. This one including St. Louis, really the entire state of Missouri, much of Arkansas, the central and eastern half of Oklahoma, and then all the way down into the Dallas-Fort Worth area, back down to College Station, Houston, and even Austin under the gun here for severe weather on our Monday. So multiple days of strong to severe storms going to be a concern with this setup. And let's go ahead and talk about that a little bit more in depth here, at least through the next 48 hours. So this afternoon, and actually let me go back really quickly and show you this, because I do think it is important today to look at the threats that are on the table. Tornado threat today, there is one down through Midland and kind of the surrounding areas of Odessa, Texas, so need to watch out for that today. Also a tornado threat tomorrow through a big chunk of Oklahoma and Texas, so I meant to mention that. As well. And then obviously a wind and a hail threat as well. But did want to kind of point out we do have a tornado threat for all of the days on the horizon here. So you cannot let your guard down, although obviously wind and hail are important too. But I think tornadoes is what kind of gets people's attention a little bit more. All right, this afternoon, again, the big theme is going to be this big squall line through Oklahoma that is slowly moving through. So going to be a flooding threat due to the slow motion of this. Also a wind threat as this taps into a little bit more thunderstorm fuel as it begins to work on through Oklahoma. And a tornado threat, again, down here into Texas. You'll notice some more single cellular kind of supercells showing up this afternoon will be the theme there. And here we go this afternoon, even deeper into the day. Again, squall line wind threat through Oklahoma, tornado threat down into New Mexico and Texas. On your map here, I think is going to be a bit of a bimodal show there. And then overnight tonight, all of this congeals back into one squall line, big time lightning overnight. You're going to hear it through portions of the Red River Valley. And then we wake up tomorrow morning, and yeah, we get this big squall line still left over. Notice this big bowing feature here, kind of the cold pull here, bringing that outflow as this mesoscale convective system really continues to cause problems even into the morning hours of Sunday. And then dies off a little bit through the afternoon. But look at what happens here. We begin to see this lift north of our warm front. And really looks like our warm front is probably somewhere into here based off of our isobars. But as that pulls north, our warm sector pulls north with it Sunday afternoon. And we're going to get a lot of spin and a lot of lift into Oklahoma, North Texas, and Arkansas. And again, going to have a tornado threat Sunday afternoon. I think the one saving grace here might be kind of what some meteorologists or some storm chasers might call crapvection, which is basically just in the morning you get kind of, let me back this up a little bit, you get all of this kind of shower activity, and granted, this all is going to kind of be spinning, but if it can't grow deep into the atmosphere, it's going to be tough to tilt that updraft and really bring a huge tornado threat. But it'll really depend on storm coverage in the morning. Do we get some afternoon destabilization? Can that cape really bring some thermodynamic lift to these storms? It's really just tough to tell until you get there, unfortunately, but we'll see. And again, any of these storms going to have the chance to rotate tomorrow afternoon, including a big hail threat and a wind threat. And you'll notice as the evening goes on, becoming a little bit more mesoscale convective system-esque through the evening hours, just meaning a big blob of storms compared to more individualized storms. And that continues into the overnight. But watch out, because during the overnight hours, as that low-level jet increases, notice some of these storms becoming a little bit more isolated, we'll say, during the overnight, at least kind of not too late into the overnight, but that 9 p.m. to midnight time frame, again, is oftentimes when we see these big tornadoes into the plains due to that increase in the low-level jet, increasing that spin, increasing that wind shear, increasing helicity, and all the things you need for tornado genesis through the overnight hours. And then this gets us into Monday morning, as far out as this model goes, and we will do it all again with another big blob of storms on the horizon. All right, so we already talked about that. Not sure why I had it pulled up again, and we don't have a day 4 risk yet either, so we will go ahead and move on from that. All right, so what about the rest of the East Coast? Again, we just talked about the severe weather. Let's talk elsewhere. This afternoon, again, the severe weather down into the southern plains, but seeing some rain in the Dakotas, Kansas, and Iowa. Not a severe weather threat there, but a rainfall threat for sure. In the east, again, all quiet as high pressure dominates for most of us this afternoon. So college football games, looking pretty good for most of us in the Midwest, the Northeast, the Southeast. It's out in the plains that'll have a bigger probably concern for those impacts this afternoon and evening. We go into overnight tonight. Again, rain pulling northward into the plains. Heavy rain through Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin. That's severe weather, though, again, remaining south of there. Then we get into Sunday afternoon. Again, warm front continuing to pull northward. Here it is. Well, it's not a beautiful straight line like that, but it's probably something generally like this, if I had to draw it based off of my meteorological knowledge that I've gained. And again, we're getting that warm front. We're getting all of that air to rise over this cooler air to the north. That's creating lift. And check out this shower activity to the north. Kind of a beautiful example of a warm front here over the Wisconsin area, Michigan, back into Iowa and southern Minnesota. Again, that's where just the good old-fashioned rain threat will be. The severe, got caught up on my words there. The severe weather threat further to the south, as we already discussed. And then east of the Appalachia chain, again, it is quiet, folks. Again, I will mention, though, this bit of a baroclinic zone and some troughing showing up along the southeast coastline could bring some showers in to you coastal areas down that way, or at least some increased cloud cover through the weekend. And then we get this, and you'll kind of see that happening there through overnight Sunday and into early Monday morning as we're waking up. Just a big old mess. I mean, as this storm moves through, all that warm air creating all that lift. Like I mentioned, that difluence aloft, really just a rainy mess Monday morning through much of the Midwest. Severe weather mess further to the south through Oklahoma, Arkansas, southern Missouri, and into Texas as well. All right, temperatures, I'll quickly show you this afternoon. Again, I'm not going to talk too much about this. You can pause the video and look, but warm through the south, cooler into the northern tier of the country. I will mention overnight this backdoor cold front, and really starting this afternoon through the overnight, backdoor cold front working through the mid-Atlantic. So tomorrow morning, waking up cooler, I think, through Virginia than maybe you would expect, down into the 40s, well into the freezing range up into the Northeast. As this cool high pressure really locks into place. But our warm sector remaining out of the plains. That's why that severe weather threat is not going anywhere. And all of this continues into our Sunday afternoon. Yeah, we got some cold air damming in the east. So along the Appalachia chain, northeast Georgia into the I-85 corridor and northbound through the Carolinas, going to see some cooler temperatures due to that cold air damming. On the other side of the mountains, going to see much warmer temperatures as we get this warm air advection. Again, I cannot draw an arrow to save my life, but this warm air advection really pulling northward. Again, you can kind of see where that warm front is even on our temperature map by Sunday afternoon. And then we get into overnight Sunday. Again, going to depend where you're at. These are your Monday morning temperatures. Cool in the mid-Atlantic and Northeast, warm everywhere else as that severe weather continues to ramp on up. All right, you folks out west, what about you? Well, it's more of a rain and snow kind of story out here this afternoon. Big time heavy mountain snow through much of the northern Rockies, valley rain elsewhere. That continues into Sunday afternoon. Check out the snow even getting down into the Four Corners, and this could be convective in nature. So do not be surprised to see some lightning through the Four Corners region by tomorrow afternoon. Again, that's going to bring heavy snow from Colorado up through Yellowstone all the way back down into Arizona and New Mexico. And all of that is going to continue. I mean, ski resorts are really lucking out the early half of this year. I'll tell you that for sure. We've already got feet of snow piled up on some of these resorts. And that's going to continue to fall overnight Sunday into Monday as our low pressure develops. And check this out, Monday morning, it is snowing like crazy through Colorado and New Mexico. Maybe even the Denver area could see some flakes out of this. If not this one, another storm later next week could bring some flakes to you folks. And speaking of another storm, here we go, Monday morning. Check this out, another huge trough developing into the Pacific Northwest. That'll be the next storyline to discuss. And speaking of that storyline, here we go. Here's our first storm system picking up where we left off Monday morning. Really just a rainy mess through the east, but Monday afternoon, that severe weather threat again ramps up. You'll notice all this thunderstorm activity in this circled area on your map through Missouri all the way down into Texas. That's where those thermodynamic and dynamic ingredients will come together. But check this out again, outside of there on the backside, we've got snow falling outside of the Rockies Monday afternoon through portions of Colorado, maybe even extreme western Kansas could pick up on some flakes as cold air advection tries to work on through, and we get some kind of deformation band-esque features there on the backside of this low pressure. But that low pressure crosses through the country, and unfortunately, again, that front really struggles to get through the entire country. We'll swing on through the Midwest, it'll swing through the Northeast, and it'll even swing through the Southeast. It just won't be very strong, much like what we saw yesterday with that front that crossed through. for many of us. But that's not the end of it, folks. Here comes another big trough. This one more of a bowling ball trough of sorts. That brings another big storm system, more severe weather, and look at this, more snow as well on the backside there with that deformation band again showing up on the western side of our low. So I do expect snow through western Kansas, western Nebraska, even the foothills of Colorado, at least the chance of it to increase with these storm systems as we get stronger cold air advection on the backside and even a bit of a jet streak that's going to help kind of show up here. But this is a mature cyclone, folks. Next weekend, kind of becoming a bit more negatively tilted here with the troughing. Which would bring, again, bigger ingredients for severe weather and snowfall. That swings on through, and then that gets us about 10 or so days from now. So we'll discuss that more in depth later on down the road. Severe weather ingredients, again, I'm just going to quickly go through this. A lot of ingredients this weekend, even into early next week. And I'll add Tuesday afternoon as well. There's some severe weather ingredients, so not a threat area yet, but don't let your guard down Tuesday as well. We could see another round of severe weather before our next storm system ramps up those ingredients again later next week through Friday, Saturday, and even into Sunday before finally calming down a little bit. Snowfall, this is over the next 10 days. This is the blend of models. And obviously a ton of snow into the Rockies, but again, even into the foothills, kind of through Nebraska, western Kansas, even extreme western panhandle of Oklahoma. Some snowfall showing up on the models, so that's very exciting for me. I'm a big snow fan. Obviously, here in Charlotte, I'm not going to see it, but always fun for you folks that might see it as that snow is finally trying to break containment from the Rockies. And as we get a bit closer, we'll talk about it more in depth. But right now, just know that the chances are increasing. Rainfall-wise, this is now through Wednesday morning, so this is the next 4 or 5 days. A lot of rain through the Midwest down into the Great Plains, but I'll mention us folks in the Southeast. Look at this. In the long run, you'll notice a big plume of moisture showing up on some of our models out of the Gulf of Mexico due to that Caribbean system. That could help finally bring a dent to some of this drought conditions that we're seeing in about a week or so. You'll notice this is maybe even less than a week. This is next Thursday into Friday, that big plume of moisture. And then even after that, maybe we finally get a front that fully crosses the country in 7 to 10 days. We'll have to wait and see. But all right, folks, that's what I got for you on this Saturday. Later video than normal. I apologize. Oops, I slept in. But either way, y'all have a wonderful rest of your Saturday. It is. Yep, stay safe out there. Have a way to get those watches and warnings for sure as well. And I'll see you all tomorrow.